Welcome to Awaken, Heal, and Thrive. I'm your host, Benjamin Bernstein, and today I'm going to be talking about why not getting what I desperately wanted was the best thing ever, because I ended up getting something even better. As I record this, it's November 8th, 2022, election day for the midterm elections in the US, but I'm not going to be political. I'll get into that plenty when I do my 2023 forecast later this month. But today I want to make an evergreen recording that will be helpful anytime. So let me talk about why it's important in my experience to set your sights on what you want and to go after it with everything you've got, but not to be attached to the outcome. So this is a significant part of my own life journey I'll be sharing with you today. As I got into my late 30s, I was living in Oklahoma. And for about 15, 20 years, I had been working on sales jobs. The last 15 of those was for a major food service company in the state of Oklahoma. I was their territory manager, although no one reported to me, and was making really good money. I was up to about 80,000 a year, company car, good benefits. And every year I was dying a little more inside because in my heart of hearts, I knew I wanted to be a professional singer-songwriter. So I eventually could not bear the sense of dying inside and my vitality slipping away by not following my life purpose. So my partner at the time and I decided we would make the big move. I'd lived in Oklahoma, central Oklahoma, my whole life. And we both agreed to move to Asheville, North Carolina, where we could both pursue our livelihoods. We were both ready to get out of Dodge, or Oklahoma as it were. So we made the move, and I left this job with these really powerful benefits and comfort zone and physical security, and moved to Asheville with the hope that I would somehow be able to make a living as a touring professional singer-songwriter, doing my own weird music. At the time, I was known as Benjamin, kind of a not so subtle play on my name. I called myself a cross between James Taylor, Deepak Chopra, and Steve Martin, because kind of a folky thing because I played acoustic guitar, kind of like Deepak Chopra because there was a lot of spiritual content, and kind of like Steve Martin because there was a fair amount of humor in my set and my songs. So I gave that my best shot for 5 years. I really worked hard. And even before I left Oklahoma, I had spent years studying the craft of songwriting and performing and going to song camps and schools, and I took it very seriously. I've got a lot of Capricorn and Virgo in my astrology chart, and I was a very good student of all this and got better. Took 2 years of voice lessons, was very serious about it. And then made the big jump. Fortunately, I had some money saved up where I didn't have to make a lot of money right on the front end. And so got to Asheville, bought a house, put a little personal recording studio in there, and really got after it the best I could. And you know what? It didn't work out. I gigged the best I could in the Asheville area, but what I was doing was not what the public wanted. They didn't want a 40-some-odd-year-old guy doing these quirky songs that had metaphysics in them and these weird senses of humor. And although I gave it my very best shot, it just wasn't panning out. So after a couple of years, I was at an open mic and ran across this gentleman named Kelly Lee Phipps, who was doing his wild man poetry. And he and I struck up a conversation and got to be really good friends. In fact, for several years, he was my best friend. It just so happened he was an astrologer and been doing that for 20 years and did a reading for me. Now, ironically, I have to add, my first wife was a professional astrologer back when I was in my 20s. And I was with her several years and never developed an interest in astrology. It's like it just wasn't my spark then. But the seed was planted. And so here in my early 40s, about 20 years later, all of a sudden, I go on fire with astrology. Kelly does this reading for me. I said, "Oh my God, did you hire people to follow me around or what? He knows so much about me." So I said, "How does this work?" So I spent 2 years of very deep study. And by the time I had done that, he said, "Benjamin, you've learned really fast, and I want you to hang out your shingle. You're ready to go pro." And so I did. And that was about the time I realized, oh, sadly, I'm not going to be able to make it as a professional singer-songwriter. I had made a clear understanding. The people I had met who were professional singer-songwriters, to a person, they did it because they had to. Their soul craved it, and there was simply no way they would be happy without doing this professional music thing. Whereas I didn't need it, but I wanted it. And so that for me was the key distinction. I heard there was a guy who interviewed a lot of, major music stars and asked them, well, if you didn't make any music, what was your plan B? And they look at him glazed eyes, what do you mean plan B? There was no plan B. This was always it. And I never had that level of need for it. So I was able to hang up the guitar and let it go. So I hang out my shingle as a professional astrologer. So that's the first deviation. Now, I'm not going to go blow by blow with every single life turn I've had. I'm now going to go a little more summarizing. But 2 to 3 years after I become an astrologer, a person turns me on to a San Pedro plant spirit ceremony, psychedelic, shamanic experience. And I actually have done a podcast on that already. So if you go back to an earlier episode of Awaken, Heal, and Thrive, I spent a whole episode talking about that first ceremony if you want to learn about that. But that was a life transformer. And I said, oh my gosh, I need this. This is a incredible healing thing. It's going to move me toward awakening faster than I've ever done. And so that launched me deep into the world of San Pedro and ayahuasca and eventually mushroom ceremonies, and went very deep into that. Wasn't on the agenda. It just sort of synchronistically happened. And during the course of that, I was called to be a shaman. And I had the desire right from the start. I then released it at one point, and then the medicine called me back. So now I do shamanic healing work too. And that came into the mix. As I pursued that, at some point, my astrology clients now were asking, oh, I want a life coach. I'd really love you to be my life coach. I said, well, I don't even know anything about that. Let me study it. So I read up on life coaching and started doing that. And that's in the mix now as well. A few years after I started doing shamanic ceremonies, I started doing little ceremonies of my own in my house. I call them shamanic awakening ceremonies, and did those for years in person. And then started doing them online even before COVID. And after, several iterations of that emerged into what has become Awakening Plus, which is my online membership, which is fast becoming the primary source of my livelihood. So, supporting people shamanically online, supporting their healing and awakening and thriving, which is where I got the name for this podcast, is the motto of Awakening Plus: Awaken, Heal, and Thrive. So that came spontaneously as well. So basically, here's like the big lesson that I got from this, and this may be helpful to you too. If you have any sense of life purpose, I mean, some people are happy just to make a buck and relax, and that's a good enough life. But my guess is if you're watching this, you're not one of those people. You're striving for something deeper. You want awakening. You want to be on track with life purpose. You want to live life meaningfully in a way that really lights up your soul, right? So what I did when I went out on the singer-songwriter track is I say, okay, to the best I understand it right now, being a professional singer-songwriter is my life purpose. So I'm going to give it everything I have. No turning back. I'm all in on this. And I truly gave it everything I had. I committed myself to it, with my life, with my money, with everything. And at the same time, I had been on the spiritual path long enough to know that sometimes you get a pleasant surprise. So I like to use a train metaphor. Until I left Oklahoma at the age of 41, my life purpose train was pretty much idling at the station. Hadn't really gotten into full gear yet. When I go into singer-songwriter mode, I'm on the express track. Whoa. But you know what? I didn't realize it was the wrong track, so to speak. But because I had high speed, I had that magic key of momentum. And when you got momentum, many things are possible that are not possible without it. I was in gear, doing the best in New House. So my hair says, okay, he means well. He's moving in kind of the right direction. At least he got to Asheville. Now let's open this sidetrack of astrology. So we got the astrology track running. And then, let's open the shamanic healer track right next to it. Let's add this whole life coaching. Let's add on the whole Awakening Plus thing. And so basically I've got, several things running parallel. And now my life purpose is having a whole variety of wonderful and harmonious and, synchronistic expressions. So basically go for your life purpose the best you can with all the gusto you can muster, go all in. And even if you didn't pick the absolute right direction, the fact that you got momentum at all is much better than not being in motion and just planning and, wondering endlessly and not actually doing anything. Far better to take action in what seems like the wrong direction ultimately and get some momentum up, because momentum is really important if you want spirit to help you. They let you say, okay, they've got skin in the game, they're trying. By the way, all that singer-songwriter energy was not wasted. I got to be a decent singer and guitar player. And I still use that today in my Awakening Plus membership. There's many events where I'm called to sing and play the guitar and hold musical space for our ceremonial work. I don't do it just for entertainment anymore. I use music, to move energy. And so those singer-songwriter days were very well suited to prepare me for that. In addition, I learned a lot of marketing. When you're a singer-songwriter, you don't spend most of your time doing music. You spend a lot of your time, marketing and getting the next gig and promoting it. And I learned a lot about, sales and marketing in my singer-songwriter years that I have since, used and applied to my current business stuff. So that was a lot of transferable skills as well. So you never know, even if you shift gears, there's all kinds of transferable skills and even specific skills that may travel with you to whatever your next destination is. Another thing I learned is that a level of consciousness cannot comprehend a level beyond itself. When I moved to Asheville, I didn't even know what ayahuasca was. I had never really heard of shamanism. This was all foreign territory to me. So getting here into an environment where that stuff is happening, my consciousness was able to expand and grow. I was able to wake up enough to open to those kinds of things. So one of my mottos, in contradiction to some people who say it doesn't get any better than this, is it always gets better than this. And my experience has been the way my life has turned out now is so much better than what I had originally planned. And if you devote yourself to spiritual awakening and doing your shadow work, which are one and the same, because your awakening usually will come most quickly by facing your wounds and traumas and healing them. And those wounds and traumas turn out to have been the very thing that was blocking your next automatic blossoming into deeper awakening. So I'm a big fan of shadow work as an accelerant for awakening. And that's a lot of what we do in the Awakening Plus membership, actually. But anyhow, I'm tangenting. So if you devote yourself to that, then you awaken, you go to levels of consciousness that were literally incomprehensible to your prior self. As the great spiritual teacher Adyashanti says, if you have an awakening and it's what you thought it was going to be, it's not a real awakening. Each one is inconceivable until you get there. And even then you can't verbalize it, but you can experience it. So what I'm living now as my life would have been absolutely inconceivable to me when I first moved to Asheville. So make your plans, get your momentum up, pursue the goals you have the best you can, but be open to it getting even better, because you literally cannot conceive how good it's going to be at your current level of consciousness. Because as you awaken deeper and your perception expands, new possibilities open that simply weren't available to you before. So I've probably covered that ground reasonably well. Again, if I were to put it in a nutshell, pursue your life purpose the best you know how. Give it all the energy you can. Don't be married to what you initially pursue being the final outcome, because that final outcome could be far better than you can even possibly imagine right now. But just give it everything you got, and miraculous things can totally happen. So that's my thought for today, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much for being here with Awaken, Heal, and Thrive. If you enjoyed this podcast, you might also like my free online mini course. It's called Instant Divine Assistance, your free guide to fast and easy awakening and healing. It'll teach you how to invoke your own embodied awakening and healing and put it all into a simple daily practice. You can also check out my best-selling book that develops these ideas further. It's also called Instant Divine Assistance. In its first week, it hit #1 on Amazon in 11 categories and has tons of 5-star reviews. Finally, I have an online membership called Awakening Plus, where you can significantly speed up your spiritual evolution. Its slogan is also the name of this podcast: Awaken, Heal, and Thrive. You'll find links to all this wonderful stuff in the show notes.